Should broadband access be compulsory across the UK? Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
A nation's broadband across the land helps folk embrace digital transformation. But if it can't expand, or if it's not close to hand, you could be living in isolation. Well, a village in Lincolnshire was recently identified as being completely isolated. But in order to change things, they approached BT, but were quoted an astronomical sum of over £100,000 to upgrade their broadband. Now, many people will say that broadband is a right. It's essential. You need to be able to connect, particularly if you want to stream videos, go online, and potentially work from home. So, Clergyman Pete, I ask you, is it now, with the government's plans to try and roll out broadband even further, a right for every person in this UK to have access to a broadband service?
Well, it's interesting that access to broadband is now seen as such an essential part of life, isn't it? I mean, not so long ago, it was something rather esoteric, a fad, having access to the internet. Well, this is what I'd say. I think you need to define it a bit more precisely. I mean, access to the internet in some way is now essential to access certain important systems within the UK. I mean, the government is progressively changing the way that you access its services. If you want to look into your tax, if you want to look into other benefits, that sort of thing, online is preferred, and it's quite difficult to make changes to such things, tax benefits, etc. Other than online these days, things have changed, and so you're that being the case, I would plus the fact that simply being able to do so, make it so much shopping is done online these days, and access to your doctor often done online since the days of lockdowns, where doctors, particularly in the NHS, and the nurses really let down the UK famously, despite people clapping them. They really let the side down. But one part of what they did was they switched to remote access to their services in the large part. So yeah, I think it's become really so necessary that it's almost like it should be added to the Bill of Rights or the Human Rights Act.
Yes,
access to broadband. And actually, the language is shifting. I notice in discussion of this that it may end up being that way, strange as it may seem.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that many people will see broadband as something which is very common to most, particularly if you're in a built-up area like a city, a town, etc. But if you're in a rural location, and we'll go to the particular case in question. So it was Kevin and Lynda Mortimer, who actually live in a village called Wingland, yes, which, as many of you will know, is a very, very small village with a very, very small community, and is near Sutton Bridge. But the problem is that because there are only a few houses within that village, BT has basically identified, and I can understand the concerns, that installing infrastructure to such a small cluster of properties in a rural location is expensive. But nevertheless, for those who are in that community, as well as others who, let's be honest, it's not just unique to them. If it was only unique to them, then maybe it could be resolved. But there are many other remote communities throughout the United Kingdom. And what's interesting is that it is identified that download speeds are typically 26% slower in rural areas, and there are at least 61,000 households nationwide without a decent connection. Now, here's the point, that many people have noticed that the work patterns are changing. Let's take the business side of it. People are working from home. Not all of them. People are going back to fixed-based offices, but there are still a lot of people who need good broadband to download files, upload files, communicate, whether it be via video platforms, etc. So, therefore, you need a good service. But here's the other side of it. If you are someone who does need to rely on shopping, because maybe you don't want to use your mobile service, but you want to use your computer service. That is something, again, that if you need to access shopping facilities, but again, if you're even wanting to download Netflix or something like that and other streaming services, the fact is that you can't do it. So you are isolated. My point is this, that the government made a very strong commitment to try and reach out to the far corners of the United Kingdom, but seems to be failing. Now, should it be mandatory? Should the government be pressing the likes of BT and others to actually build infrastructure and just simply accept that that's where those remote communities now need to be prioritised? Or do you think it's just more of a case that those people who are in the remote parts of the world just have to accept that they're going to have to rely maybe on other services such as their mobiles?
Well, if
assuming that the mobile service is there.
Well, yeah, exactly. We're just dealing with that last point. That is a possible way of doing it, of using mobile access. But if that is the case, there'd be ways of making it better, making it more accessible to people. You could have technological solutions to that if you actually put some thought into it. And this is the issue that I was going to raise in response. In there seems to be not a broadband, but rather an overbroad response to this. It's, oh yes, well, you need to put broadband in everywhere. Oh, that doesn't work everywhere for reasons that you've just outlined, or at least not in the normal way. I mean, you could have a broadband hub, so you could have. I know people who have this in place, have a sort of remote access, not a cabled-in access, but a remote access to the hub with their actual access to the internet, similar to how you would have with a mobile phone line. So there are ways of doing it. In fact, some whole national networks for internet are done wirelessly. So it's certainly, the technology is there to achieve that for remote areas in Britain as well. But what it requires is some investment, not so much investment in money, but investment in planning, in putting some experts, people who know about this stuff, get them in there. Maybe people who've worked in remote areas in other parts of the world say, well, how can we make sure that there's all coverage for everywhere here and get it done? So the issue would be here that it's not being taken seriously, and yet it really does interfere with one of the aims of government, which is much touted, which would be DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, including all these different people, including people who live in rural areas. They're being excluded from the normal access that other people have. And as there's an increased switch to online being the way that you access services, then and also acquire goods. Yeah, I think it is needed in the same way as it used to be a rail system and then a road system was needed. No, an internet system. But it just needs, well, not it just needs, but it does need some more strategic thought being put into it. Not some report that will arrive in 20 years' time. I'm thinking about actually employing a company, the government employing a company, to actually do it, to look into it and do it, to action this.
Here's the thing, because the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology has said that the UK is actually committed to building a gigabit network faster than any country in the EU. We know that the United Kingdom is making progress, particularly in the cities and certain large towns. So it's certainly on par with a lot of other countries in the European Union, whether it be Germany, France, and others. The problem is that it's those who are in the rural communities, because the idea is to get parity between the rural communities and the urban areas. Essentially, that the service is available whoever needs it, rather than those who are basically becoming second-class citizens because they can't access the service. Now, the thing here is that, and it's like any business, it doesn't matter whether it's a small business, medium-sized business, or large business. If you don't have certain facilities, businesses won't actually go there. So if you don't have a broadband service, or even if it happened to be, if we move it to the other side of it, a mobile service, it's less likely that people will want to invest in those areas. So from my perspective, I think it's essential that you cover all areas. I do appreciate that the cost of infrastructure, particularly for the technology firms, is immense. But here's the thought. I would say that actually what they're doing, if they do it right, is that they're also investing for future generations. And that's the thing that I think is key. I do appreciate that people do tend to think short term. We've talked about this on Mark and Pete before, which is that there's too much short termism, not enough long termism.
Indeed, yes.
So my thought is this: is that if we are to compete, and this is the key, if the United Kingdom is to compete, particularly in areas of design, technology, the arts, etc., having good broadband is essential. So to me, it's like an essential service, whether it's your gas, electricity, or water service. Without it, it's very hard to function. So to me, I would certainly place it as pretty much like the fourth emergency service, essentially, because technology and communications is paramount. And if you don't have it, you're not in the game, folks. But I'd be interested to know what our community and our audience thinks, for those who are listening in, with good broadband service, of course.
Yes, let us know. Just get in touch with us at markandpete.com if you can get online, and you can just make sure that you're subscribed. You can leave a comment on this and every episode. But from Mark and myself, we're just going to make sure that we can dial in next time. So come back next time and listen to Mark and Pete. For this week, it's bye for now.